Opposed?
Aye.
All right, we'll go on to the consent agenda as amended. They want to make a motion to approve it?
Motion to approve with the changes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just made it.
I'll do something like that. Just somebody say something. Go ahead with Restore Act presentation.
Mark Mitchell.
Somebody should have said something.
He wasn't even listening.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to come speak to you today. As y'all all know, BP did not reach a settlement in February, and they're now in federal court over in Louisiana. Furthermore, the U.S. Treasury has not drafted rules and guidance for implementation of the Restore Act. So that's made it extremely difficult to make any progress beyond what our committee's already accomplished. Our committee held 2 regular meetings and 1 public meeting since I last talked to you, brought you up to date. The committee met on Tuesday, March the 6th, to discuss proposed project proposal form and potential evaluation criteria. The committee made no final decision on either a final proposed project form or the evaluation criteria due to the ongoing BP trial and the lack of guidance from the U.S. Treasury. The committee held its regular meeting March the 13th, and Mr. Doug Darling, the interim director of the Florida Gulf County Restore Act Consortium, was our guest speaker. Mr. Darling provided a brief presentation on the Restore Act and answered questions. He confirmed that no progress had been made at the federal level in the draft guidance rules, and the Restore Act committees have not done anything further. The first of our 5 public meetings was held on March the 12th at the Wakulla Senior Center. Mr. Bill Williams, a consultant for SCG Government Affairs, made a presentation on the Restore Act and responded to citizen questions and comments. This meeting was not very well attended, wasn't near as well attended as we had hoped, and therefore the committee has taken steps to better notify the public on the remaining meetings by doing public service announcements on Oyster Radio and Clear Channel Radio in Tallahassee. The next public meetings will be March the 26th in Panacea, April the 9th in St. Mark's, April the 23rd in Shell Point, and May the 7th in Sop Choppy. And our next regular meeting will be held on April the 17th at the TCC campus in Wakulla County. And that's all we have.
Thank you, sir. All right, now we're doing the consent.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes as noted. Second. Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. On the poll items, for both of you guys, these are all requests to schedule public hearings, so hopefully we're not debating the issues, we're simply explaining them a little bit better. Howard, number 6.
No. So before I begin, which I'm going to be speaking to item on page 13 of the attachment, J2, election signs. Before I do, though, I know we're advertise. Well, this is to advertise, and the citizens would have a chance to discuss at that time when this comes back. But this is the good time for the citizens to also have a say in what's going forward. Just like I'm concerned, or have a concern on parentheses J parentheses 2, so other people might have concerns that they could voice that at this meeting, and we could, possibly adjust the agenda if the board so chose. Anyway, my concern is on the difference in the sizes of election signs signs. It reads, election signs not exceeding 4.5 square feet per sign face and 3 feet in height in any residential district, and 32 square feet per sign face and 6 feet in height in any non-residential district. Election signs shall be removed within 30 calendar days following the election to which it pertains, as provided by Florida statutes S 106.1435. So I would ask that the board consider making it a uniform size, going to the smaller one, which would be acceptable in the residential neighborhoods, I think, and the small size also for the non-residential districts.
Would this be considered a substantial change at the public hearing if we did what Dr. Kessler suggested? It's not. Then can we do it then? I think I'd support you 100%.
That's fine.
I think this item was simply either to have the public hearing or not have it.
Okay.
I mean, if the board wants us to make a change, we could do it now, or we could do it at a public hearing for a change.
I'm fine with that. Basically, the sign on the commercials limits it to the size. It means less signs, or smaller signs, basically.
Yeah, right, it means small
Who
signs.
doesn't like smaller political signs? So.
Can we vote that in right now and just do it?
How about a head nod, and she'll just go ahead and change it? Can we do
Okay,
that?
that's good.
I'm good with that.
Are y'all fine with that? Heather,
So
good enough?
That would apply to non-residential, so if someone wants to put it on their private property, which we're still limiting, they can't have a larger sign as well?
Correct. The thing says 4.5 square feet, 3 feet in height in any residential. In other words, it's different for residential and commercial, and Howard simply said, let's make them both the most restrictive, which is residential, correct?
Correct.
Commissioners, I would recommend that we do the same for the other types of exempt signs in this section, so that we're not treating political signs different than free expression signs, for example.
That's fine.
Okay. Head nod good enough?
Yeah, we could.
Okay. Do we have a motion then to have the public hearing?
Make a motion to have the public hearing.
Second the motion.
All right, Jack?
Well, at the last public hearing that we had, I was not overwhelmed with the receptiveness that we were hoping to get on getting some approval. We have a perfectly good piece of language in the existing ordinance about nonprofits, natural history based, and the staff and the attorney have chosen to delete it. I've discussed it with Louis, and apparently he's talked to the attorney, and we're getting nowhere. Our problem is that if our signs are only non-conforming, like these are expensive signs that are stolen all the time. We have them, or they're considered a souvenir by some people. They get torn down, and we will be unable to replace these signs. Essentially, that will put us out of business. We rely on our signs with the highway and the back streets and everything else, and I'm asking that we have an exemption for nonprofits to be able to maintain the signs. And it's just not us, it's museums, it's the Heritage Museum, it's it could be the Maritime Museum if it ever gets going. We need an ability to do that. I do not understand why the county staff is persisting on eliminating that and putting us at risk in this situation. And we've been here 50 years. We're going to be here, I hope, for another 50 years, and we have to do whatever we have to do to stay here. But I'm asking you to consider that there's a real problem with the way the ordinance is being proposed, and I would ask you to consider changing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify, you said let's move forward with the public hearing. This motion
No, this is not the public hearing. This is the motion. This is the motion to
Hold the
schedule the public hearing.
Right. Just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to ask, so if we wanted to get further in the discussion of this, we need to
So
go on
full
to
public hearing.
We need to
Yet
wait.
to
Okay.
come.
Got it.
Just getting warmed up. Without dwelling too deep into this, Jack's example of his sign, if his sign got stolen, good point, can he replace it under what we're talking about?
Do you want me to answer it, Louis? Do you want to answer it? My understanding from staff is that those are currently non-conforming signs, so even without changing this ordinance, that is not, they're not supposed to be replaced.
Well, we'll get into this at the public hearing, but my understanding was if you have a sign up there right now that's non-conforming, you can keep it there.
And you can, but
What
that,
if it gets
I'm
stolen?
saying that this code provision does not, this ordinance doesn't change the status of those signs at all.
Okay. Well, that's certainly something to talk about.
And the concern was also treating the signs differently based on content, nonprofit versus for-profit as well.
Okay, like I said, we got a whole public hearing, so any more discussion?
We'll save it for public hearing.
Motion to approve?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Aye.
Howard, number 9.
Right. This will be on page 2 of the attachment. Let's see. And under Article 2, do we have a fee schedule in place now? I thought we did, but it seems like where 23.008 is repealed and its entirety replaced with the following. How does that work?
I'm not
So
clear on your
okay, so it says Section 23.008 is hereby repealed in its entirety and replaced with the following. Section 23.008 rates, fees, and charges for use of county parks and recreational facilities. The Board of County Commissioners shall adopt a fee schedule in the form of a resolution setting forth the rates, fees, and charges for the use of county parks and recreational facilities.
Which we've done that.
Yeah, that's by resolution. The fees were never in 23.008. 23.008, I'm just going to verify, I believe was that counterclockwise thing around, that we moved to a new section
Oh, okay.
in a different ordinance that's coming up at the same time. But let me verify that.
Counterclockwise?
Yeah, that's what we talked about in our review, that count
Yeah.
around the island.
State Park.
It was a provision dealing with how the direction you need to travel when you're boating. And so we moved that to Chapter 7, which is on waterways.
So we kept the counterclockwise though?
I didn't change it, but I moved it to a different chapter where it was more appropriate in terms of its subject matter, and then we just used that number rather than adding a new number to your code.
So when you're saying that
Both in the same direction.
23.008 did not have the
That's correct.
fees in it, and yet over here, it's saying it's going to be replaced with the following. And then it says the Board of County Commissioners shall adopt
We're
a fee
just
schedule.
We're just using that number, that code number.
Recycling.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's fine. So, to approve. So motion to approve.
To have the public hearing, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Richard, number 10.
Okay, number 10, I want to ask David to clarify on this, because whenever I first read it and researched it, the way it initially presents itself as if we was wanting to pass an ordinance that was going to prevent someone from parking their boat or their trailer after sunset at any of our county parks, and that automatically raised a flag with me, especially concerning our local fishermen and all. But I've talked to David about it, and the attorney, and I believe Sheriff Krill is also going to speak on this for a second. But I just want to turn it over to David and allow David for the good of the public at home and here to clarify the language.
It raised concern with me too. As soon as I said flounder, they kind of rolled their eyes.
It raised concern with all 5 commissioners, so don't feel. But this agenda item requests board approval to schedule and advertise a public hearing for consideration and approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 7 of the Wakulla County Code of Ordinances. And primarily, let me start off, primarily the reason that we're even presenting this item, we would not even be here if it was not for us trying to enforce a trespass of some existing vessels on our that are moored at our dock facility at Rock Landing. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be talking about this, but we have to pass this ordinance now because we can't get them to move their vessels, and therefore we have to pass a law that does that, and that's too bad, but that's the reason that we're here. So understand that's the basis of this ordinance. in no way, shape, fashion, or form is this ordinance did we ever even contemplate. I've heard things, you're going to gate it off, you're going to close it at 7 o'clock. That is just as far from the truth as it could be. So anybody thinks any otherwise, it's not true. What this does is this, and we're going to come back with language that clarifies this to where basically what it is if you've paid your boat ramp fee and or you have your annual pass, that's good for 24 hours. You can be there, you can come in at 2 o'clock in the morning and go floundering or go shrimping or go do whatever you want to do. As long as you got your boat ramp pass fee there, and it's visible, then we know that you're a vehicle that should be parked there. That's what it is, and that's all this means. The problem was it was worded that way, but it wasn't. It basically said you had to have county approval, and technically your county approval was your boat ramp fee.
That was the clear.
Okay, so we're going to clarify that to say that's what it is. But no, we want people to use the facilities 24 hours a day. We don't limit that period in the story. There's none of that. But just to let you know, the reason that we're here
Is because of those three boats?
because of those three boats.
More
If it
boats.
wasn't for that, we wouldn't be wasting the county's time or money on this.
I appreciate you clarifying. I want to also give Sheriff Creel a chance to speak on that. He wanted.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, David. It's just like the Administrator said, it was the fault of 4 boat owners. It started out 4, and I've been dealing with this with Mr. Edwards since 8 o'clock the morning of January 8th when I took office, and we've been dealing with it. We contacted the boat owners. 1 moved the boat. The other 3 refused to move the boats. You've got pictures of them. These aren't small boats. They're large boats. And as of this morning, there was 2 of them, but we can't get them to move them. We looked at the existing ordinance. We did not have the authority to go down there. If we issue trespass warnings to the owners, then they are violating a trespass warning if they go in there to move their boat. But it's simple, like he said. All we're doing is trying to get them to move the boats off our boat ramp.
And these are slips that could otherwise be rented to people to generate income for the Parks Department.
That's correct. And take that money and turn around and use it to maintain the ramps.
Thank you, sir.
And also, just to let you know, is this the language that was used in this proposed ordinance was the same language that has been adopted since 2001 to manage the boat ramp facilities at Mash's Sands Park. Okay, so all we did was just said here we're just going to copy that and basically make it for all of the county. So, but that's a good point. We need to clarify it, but to let you know, it has been in effect since 2001. But as I said before, we would not be wasting county taxpayers' dollars if it wasn't for those vessels.
At least all 5 of us thought of flounder right off the bat.
That's right.
That's a good sign.
Well, I make a motion that we move ahead to hold the public hearing. I thank Sheriff Creel for talking well, but we make a motion to hold the public hearing.
I'll second, but I have one more comment, recommendation. I think we also need to look at, there's a statement in there, no vessel shall be tied, fastened, or otherwise anchored to county boat ramps, docks, and piers. I think we need to clarify that as a little bit as well.
I totally agree.
If someone's just tying their boat up and they're backing their truck in, they may be in violation as written.
That's some of the language that raised the flag with me.
Well, we're going to do that by labeling them as there'll be temporary mooring floating docks, and that's what those are. So,
If we can clarify the language, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay.
All right, we had a motion, second. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Richard, number 11.
Okay, this next one, because I'm always trying to look out for property rights. This next one is dealing with where someone can park their vehicle, and I think this is another area where once we can clarify the language, but as it first reads, it reads like we were trying to pass an ordinance to dictate to someone where they can park their vehicle in their yard. But I want to also allow David a chance to clarify this as well.
I think you need to let the attorney clarify this one.
This was initiated through code enforcement. Had been receiving complaints from small lot owners where their neighbors were parking semi-trucks in the front lawn that created noise issues, exhaust issues, and as well as they were not pleased with those kind of trucks being located in their neighborhood in the front lawn. In order to address that, What this ordinance does is create certain restrictions for really large vehicles above 12,000 pounds. Those are things such as semis, dump trucks, things like that. F-350s are below that, so they would not be included in this kind of a restriction if that gives you some sort of point of scale. Where this ordinance applies as far as the commercial vehicle, the large truck and trailer parking, is in your residential districts where there's smaller lots. One thing that we are going to, you'll see at the end of that section that ag and RR5 zoning is excluded from this. That's why we need to also add Preservation 1 and Preservation 2, because those are 20 lot tracts, and we'll make that change before this comes back for public hearing. You'll also notice this ordinance treats RVs different. They are allowed to be parked anywhere in accordance with your current code, and we did not change that. We did include some additional clarifying language at code enforcement's request that you cannot live in an RV unless you've otherwise been allowed to do so under the land development code. And what else? This does allow for certain temporary parking situations. For example, back in subsection E of the proposed ordinance, you'll see that lots where buildings are going up, the restrictions are not going to apply because we clearly expect to have more commercial vehicles there then. Lots where a commercial vehicle is on site to provide a lawful commercial service to the property owner does not apply. And then it also makes provisions for emergencies and where vehicles have become disabled.
Smaller lot size, you mean smaller than 5 acres, just to clarify that, right?
It's really going to, well, I mean, we go from 5 down to 2, so by excluding all that are above 5, we're really talking about 2 acres or less where this is going to apply in practical purposes.
Why did you take the RVs away? Because an RV is twice as large as a 18-ton truck. Why would you not treat it the same way? Because an RV in someone's front yard on a quarter acre is a really bad scene, in my opinion.
If the board wants to give us direction to treat them equally, we can certainly make those changes when we bring the ordinance back.
Thing to discuss in the public hearing.
But we did not take the initiative because the issue we were trying to address was with large commercial vehicles, not RVs.
Thank you. That's the reason I wanted to pull it, because I just want to be careful whenever we get to telling people how they can park their vehicles in their yard. So I make a motion that.
I've got comments there.
Go ahead.
I think we really need to clarify, are we talking about aesthetics or are we talking about noise? Because we've got a noise ordinance, and if this is a noise concern, we need to address it within that noise ordinance, and that's the main thing that I keep hearing. I did a little bit of homework. A diesel truck doing 40 miles per hour 50 feet away reads 84 dB. Decibels. A lawnmower, 85 to 90 decibels, and a garbage truck, 100 decibels. And so I've got problems with us calling this a fix for a noise problem, because there's going to be other noise problems that are going to be worse than what we're trying to fix. I've got problems with assigning a 12,000 pound value, because what happens when we tell this person he's got to move and he says my truck weighs 11,999 pounds, we're going to go make him weigh it. You know, I mean, the enforcement side of this we've got to be concerned with. You know, speaking to the property rights issues, there are some neighborhoods that have very stringent rules, and I applaud that. If folks want to live in those areas, I think they should be allowed to, but a lot of folks don't. And for us to just put this across the board to the entire county, I think is going to be counterproductive to what most people want. I just have a hard time telling people, you know, if you've got somebody that's earning a living and he's an over-the-road trucker, he might be gone 3 weeks out of the month anyway. When he comes home and he parks, that shouldn't really be a big concern to anyone.
I fully agree.
This gives us a problem with school buses. In our county, a lot of people take school buses home. That's a potential problem. So my preference would be, let's just not approve this thing. Let's don't pay for the staff time or the advertisement to even bring this back to a public hearing.
What if it was something that said like tandem axle vehicles that would exclude school buses?
Well-
would not exclude a semi.
Before we put a fix in, we've got to figure out what's the problem. So back to, is this a noise problem or is this an
I
aesthetics
think
problem?
it's a,
think
came
it's
from
both.
code enforcement, let's just imagine
It's an
a
aesthetic.
lot in Wakulla Gardens, 50 by 100 lot, and a guy or girl drives a dump truck, and they park the dump truck in front of their house every day. The neighbors don't like it.
With me, it's not a noise, it's aesthetics with me, it's not.
I think it's worth at least talking about. I agree with a lot of your points, and I think I'm as anybody else who don't want to step on people's.
I just don't see how parking a dump truck or an 18-wheeler in the neighbor's yard impacts your value or your happiness or your, what was the words here?
Peaceful enjoyment. That's
Peaceful
been a buzzword
enjoyment,
lately, yeah.
you know? I mean,
There's some people I know that they own a 5-acre lot, well, their house is at the very back of it, and they own construction equipment. Well, if they park their construction equipment in the front yard in one of these areas, they're in
I don't
a
think
violation.
I don't think that's the
They'd be
place where we're
excluded.
going.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about maybe the lot that's maybe less than a half acre. And basically, if people, they buy their home, you show a home and they buy it from the outside, they like the appearance of the home, they like the neighborhood and whatever. When you put a dump truck in the front yard, that's going to affect the sale of my home.
Yeah, but say this guy's been living there for 20 years driving this dump truck, and now we tell him that he can't do that, you know? I mean, that's overreach in my
I believe
opinion.
Commissioner Kessler has a comment.
Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you. Well, two issues. One, on these, generally, on these advertisements, and by the way, good discussion, on these advertisements here, vote to advertise, I really think that we should be having that discussion with the community before we go and advertise, because if we go and advertise, let's say we voted on this and it got advertised, and then there were some major changes, we have to go through the whole process again. So, going back to an old system, sometimes the old systems worked. It gave the citizens and ourselves some time to think about this more and discuss it fully, just like this is being discussed now. And I think we should maybe give some thought to that, of having these things off the consent agenda, onto general business, where it could be an agenda item and people can speak to them. But I just have a technical thing. When you're speaking about the heavy truck on analysis, and they're listing it, a heavy truck is any vehicle weight more than 5,000. Is that meant to be that's the weight for that?
That was an example, I think.
That's state law.
Okay.
These are just trying to give perspective, because I don't have a good perspective on how much a vehicle weighs, just because.
Right. Right, and we get into the really heavy trucks, then it's a whole bunch more.
Is there a motion on this item on the floor? You want to make a motion to proceed? Richard, I think you pulled it, right?
Yeah, I pulled it, and I was gonna put it ahead to public hearing, but I was from knocking around. If as it stands right now, I'm not really wanting to vote for this. I'll go ahead and say it as it is, as it's written right now. There's more that needs to be done, because it's very restrictive to me, to someone's property rights.
So you'd like to see maybe work with staff?
I'd like to work with staff more to clean up some more of this language before we go ahead and spend the money for a public hearing and to go that way.
I just want to point out one thing to the board. I mean, specifically on your issue, Commissioner Harden, the current code right now only allows one commercial vehicle on a piece of residential property. So the example you gave, they're violating current code. So what we have done is saying that only applies in certain small lot residential zoning. So,
well, if we can maybe clean up and then bring this maybe back at the next meeting or something.
Anybody else want to make a motion on that item? If you don't, it's going to die. All right, let's move on. All right, item 20, Howard?
You want me to get started, Dr. Kessler, or you want?
Oh, it was just to, you can if you want to, I'm there, but go ahead.
This agenda item requests board approval to the revised Wakulla County Policy number 0701 relating to the section V and F scheduled public hearings. March 4th, 2013, the board approved changing the start time of the second meeting of each month to convene at 2 p.m. Policy number 707-01, section V and F currently reads that the regular board meeting's public hearing shall be heard at 5 p.m. or soon thereafter as is possible. In order to coincide with 2 p.m., the board meetings policy 07-1 requires an amendment to the section relating to the scheduled public hearing. Therefore, staff requests the policy be amended to read, for regular board meetings, public hearings shall be scheduled as the first substance item on the agenda and heard at the time scheduled for the start of the meeting or as soon thereafter as is possible. This is an administrative item to just clean it up so we can get in conjunction with our 2 p.m. meeting.
Okay, thank you. That was part of what I was going to read. But, so, I'm going to be voting against this, but to explain, we all agree that public hearings are important, and the board voted to have the second meeting of each month start at 2 p.m. What I thought I heard was that we were not going to have important issues at that meeting. Now, if we change this to make it okay to have those important issues, which public hearings are, at the 2 o'clock, I think we're now eliminating more and more of our population, especially our working, tax-paying citizens, from attending these meetings and taking part in the process.
I kind of understand what you're saying. Sometimes, as you know, public hearings, though, are in order to qualify for a CDBG grant or for, some non-controversial item. I think we all agreed and gave David clear direction that there's going to be something that's going to have.
And that's still the intent. This is just cleans up so that we can have such public.
Instead of setting a time,
that's right.
It says the start of the meeting. But I do.
Well,
it's subjective.
Sure. So if we have a meeting, and our meeting we're now at 5:30, and let's pretend our meeting is over at 7:30, and let's say it's 2.5 hours. So 4:30 in the afternoon, our meeting could be over, and all the public hearings could be over. And those people that are working in Tallahassee or wherever else, right here in town, and you either have to take off from work or whatever. We're just making it tough on the majority of people who can make these meetings, and I don't think we should be making it easy to have public meetings in the afternoon. So that's my point.
I'm going to be, I wouldn't say addressing that, but certainly talking about it under discussion item later.
Okay.
Does anybody want to make a motion on this item?
I'd like to make a comment since we're talking about the 2 o'clock. Obviously, I was the swing vote on that, and I made it clear that my intentions for that is just to see what happens, see if we have good participation at 2 o'clock. It may be a good thing, it may be a horrible thing. I'm not in love with any time. It's actually more inconvenient for me at 2 o'clock, but I like to make my decisions based on facts. I have committed to see that through, and I have committed that I'm going to let that go for 2 meetings, April and May, and then the first meeting in June, I'm going to bring back an item for us to discuss that.
You actually stole my thunder, because I was going to say 3 meetings, and then have David come back and report and see if it's caused any unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're thinking along the same line.
That way we can make a good, informed decision, and, like I said, I'll meet at midnight if everybody wants to come join us.
Or Saturday or Sunday.
Whatever it takes. We're here to serve, and that needs to be the intent, and so I think that's a good thing.
Give it 3 meetings.
Well, let's. I don't think we need to
I know we're going to start.
delineate that right now.
We're going to discuss this later on in the meeting.
Yes,
anyway.
this just says set it at the beginning of the meeting. We may decide to make it 7 o'clock at night. Then we'll have to come back and revise the policy again. I think that's all. This
Exactly.
is.
And so since we've already committed to move it to 2 o'clock, unless we're going to reverse that right now, it doesn't sound like we're wanting to do that. We need to do this procedurally just to make that possible. So I'm for this with the thought that I may come back and change my mind once we determine that 2 o'clock is not a good thing.
Perfect. We'll take that as a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, Chuck.
As in the first time you start talking about the 2 o'clock meetings, you know I'm opposed to them. Basically, anytime you're making a decision, the more input you have from the community, the better the decision will be. By moving it to 2 o'clock, you're reducing public input, you're making it difficult for the public to come. Personally, I will just talk about myself personally here, you're messing up a whole day for me. So I have to give up whatever I was going to do that day to come in at 2 o'clock to come to a meeting. If you want to don't want to have it in the public meeting in the night, move it to the morning. Give us the rest of the day. Give a full period, not put it in the middle of the day. And it just seems like the only purpose you're doing this for. It doesn't save money. It doesn't save anything. The only thing it does is reduce public participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hickman?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Charles Hickman. I live at 528 Hickorywood Drive, and I've got a couple things going on, swimming around in my mind, but it was suggested, especially in the newspaper, that this would be for non-controversial items. If an item is pulled, as several of them were tonight, from the agenda to be discussed as it is now, is obviously controversial. Will that mean that it'll come up at the next meeting in the evening? Or will that mean that it will progress? The thing that I guess I have a problem with a couple things. Meetings are supposed to be for citizens to be heard. I don't know how many of you drove into the parking lot at 5 o'clock this afternoon. There are no parking spaces. It's all taken up by employees or by county vehicles. The closest that you can get to this meeting is parking over behind the Chamber of Commerce. That does not make it accessible to those who fall under ADA, Americans with Disabilities. I guess I've got a couple of things that just have bothered me, and I haven't bothered to speak up about this, but for some reason I hear way off in the future an ADA lawsuit, just because people cannot access this meeting. So it's something that I don't think that the commissioners have thought through completely. There's a number of other issues that I have in my mind too, but nevertheless, it's a situation where you need to sit back and take another hard look and put brain in gear. I admit, I was ambivalent whenever this came up. I thought, no problem. But then, when I saw the article come out in the newspaper, it was like, whoa, wait a minute. There's a couple issues here that they haven't talked about. So, I encourage you to go back and rethink this, even before you go 3 meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more discussion?
I'd just like to say, I'm going to still stick to the same position that I had at the last meeting. I would like to see the meetings stay as they are. I think it gives greater access to the public. Most public get off at 5, and it's all they can do to get here by 6 o'clock and 6:30. If we move it 2 o'clock, if we move it to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think it is going to impede some citizens being able to come and speak at that meeting if they want to. So I'm just going to hold to my position.
Okay. Now this item though doesn't say that. It really has, I wouldn't say it has nothing to do with it, but it says you hold the public hearing at the beginning of the meeting. So if we change it to 5, we may change it to 6, we may change it to Saturday, then the public hearings will automatically be on Saturday. So if you do vote for this, you're not changing your position, but I respect if you want to vote against it. Howard?
Yeah, and as I said prior, I'm going to be voting against it also. And I think right now what we're doing, is punishing our working taxpayers and voters. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to say if someone's working, it's going to be a hardship on that person to get into the meetings. And I don't think we should be going, I know we're going to discuss it later, I don't think we should be looking at 3 meetings, 3 months, and then finally try to reverse it. I think this should be handled quicker. But thank you.
Any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion, Bruce, you bet against it? Motion passes 3-2. All right, planning and zoning. Mr. David, you want to handle this, or you going to?
Louis, this one is, this is adoption of comprehensive plan amendment CP 1209, and Louis is going to be handling this one.
Yes, Commissioners, this is for the adoption of the comprehensive plan amendment for the TCC Wakulla Environmental Institute property. They are requesting the change of the 158-acre Gaby property that's on the screen from agriculture to public facilities.
I make a motion we approve.
All right, is there a second? And you're going to, in your motion, of course, you're accepting staff reports, right?
That's correct.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Can we do citizens first? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, Chuck? Can Chuck just get like a pass or something?
Annual pass?
Yes.
This is one of the best things that's come down the pipe in a while for the county. This has the potential to really be a game changer, and I wish it was somewhere else. It's so important for the county that I would have to support it. So, thank you. I would like to suggest we figure out some way to get a back entrance to it, so that the only entrance is on 319. Thank you.
Chuck's behind it, and I am too. Christine Dennis?
Hi, I'm going to read my statement. I was at the last meeting about this same subject. Last week I put the Planning Commission on notice about both my objection to the land use change and also my concern over the real possibility of my repaired sinkhole damage being exacerbated by the proposed development. The sinkhole on my property is merely an arm of a sinkhole that was stated to be present on the property in question. My sinkhole is noted in the state's subsidence incident report occurring in 1998 and requiring additional repair in 2006. The number, if you care to look it up, is 59-008. There are 3 sinkholes on the proposed development. We were advised last week that the developers can build up to a 6-story building on the site or buildings. Stormwater retention has to be constructed as well. The sellers of the property also own 101 acres adjacent to the property that could also be sold to TCC, and Wildwood Partners owns 135.5 acres that they have previously been unsuccessful in selling and would possibly sell or develop if this development or any development is approved. Sinkholes are exacerbated and triggered by drought, new construction, blasting, heavy ground loading, heavy rainfall, and heavy groundwater pumping. Most of these conditions will exist if construction is allowed on this property. I believe voting on the proposed development should be delayed until independent sinkhole testing is performed on the property, an independent report is prepared of possible issues to this and surrounding property, and sufficient time is provided for public review. The sinkhole testing mentioned by Preble, that I don't know if they've done yet, included divers and ground penetrating radar. I believe that those tests, borings, also known as SPTs, impact tests and mapping should also be done to determine the possible impact on nearby subdivisions, the Wakulla Middle School, and other developments. I would hope that the commissioners seriously consider this in light of the very real possibility of school children, houses, and land being negatively impacted by the proposed development, not to mention the liability that the county would incur in the absence of taking time to test and review. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Elby, you didn't want to talk? All right, is there any more discussion amongst commissioners?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to hear, well, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to point out that Alan Wise from with Preble Rush is here if you have questions about the
And
single
that's exactly who I was going to call forward.
Good evening. Alan Wise with Preble Rush, here to answer any questions that you have.
My questions are her questions.
Okay. There is no secret that just like much of Wakulla County, this property does have karst features on site. Obviously, as we're planning the development, we'll have to carefully place proposed improvements to not impact or to be as far away from those karst features as possible. There will be investigations that will have to occur, not only the boring and standard penetration test, but more than likely also some ground penetrating radar. Make sure that we're not constructing anything over a potential karst feature. In my opinion, I believe the time to provide that information is at site plan, maybe not necessarily now. There's a lot of this property that's going to be in conservation, and so, you know, in order doing a blanket study would be extremely costly, and will probably be in areas that are going to be set aside for conservation to begin with.
I believe, how was it, when Walmart was built, didn't they, when they did their investigation, they found, you know, unsuitable soils, we'll say, they had to end up doing micro piles, I think, to stabilize the ground below it. So I assume any multi-million-dollar building they're going to build, they'll do due diligence to make sure they're not throwing their money down a hole.
Yeah, so I'll respond to that. And I did not know the questions brought up, and I was going, you know, I read through the material as much of a layman, not an engineer. But if I go back to Walmart, and I say what took place at Walmart, I had the opportunity to have read their own engineering reports at Walmart, and you called it some kind of pilings, but Walmart's. But my thing the thing that was in my mind was that they said we could not build conventional construction at this site. We would have to do something that I sort of remember as horizontal pilings, and that's no problem, okay? But the problem was, I don't know if many people remember, but, well, I'll give you a conversation I had with some folks that were here improving the soil at Walmart. Their job was to improve the soil, and what they did is they basically crushed through karst features under the surface, and then there were weeks, if not more than a month or so, of just truckload after truckload coming in, filling that that area to quote unquote improve the soil. That certainly is not something that I would think TCC Environmental Institute would be in favor of.
Standard construction. It's just stabilizing the ground below it because you're putting a big weight on it so it doesn't subside. But they poured rock, if I remember correctly, they drilled rock shafts. I mean, shafts filled with rock are still pilings. Basically, they put something as a mat foundation to hold the building up so foundation didn't crack. But it's standard construction, no more than having a piling house on the beach.
It may be standard construction in some areas, but in our area, we have these karst features, and I don't think it's good practice to just say we're going to bust them up and fill them in. Now, I could be totally wrong. Standard construction didn't look to me like weeks, if not more than a month of, I mean, it was literally truck after truck coming in there. It wasn't a small amount of fill that came in. I'm just questioning if, first of all, we didn't do the borings. We don't know what's really underneath it. We haven't done the other tests. If this site is approved and TCC finds that they have to do, that they can't construct without busting up our karst, where are you on that as an engineering firm? Where is TC on that?
Well, obviously, this is the Wakulla Environmental Institute. It's difficult to claim to be an environmental institute if you're not willing to adhere to and exceed what's being a good steward of the land and the environment is. Dr. Kessler, the real answer to that is it depends on what the what the borings find. I mean, there's any number of ways to provide that to reach the end goal, depending on the findings of what's underground. So I know that you're looking for a specific how will we move forward, but until we have a little bit more information, it's difficult to provide the answer to that.
Right.
I think you're looking at the fact that Walmart bought 5 acres. They had to build on 5 acres. TCC has bought 167 acres. They can find 5 acres on there to build on.
This is not an excuse, it's probably a bad example, but let's not forget that Wakulla Springs and Lodge is built on top of one of the largest karst caverns in the world. I'm sure they can find a way to make it work, in other words, without harming the environment.
Okay, but, and I appreciate that's the only questions I have for you.
Thank you very much.
So what I'm concerned about, and I got really concerned when we just heard twice, standard construction. Let's assume this is approved. We don't want the institute here to be here in Wakulla County. What are the what say does the county have in construction?
Florida Building Code.
So, Louis, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I think we have our adopted construction standards. This will come before you as a PUD, and through that we address the site design standards, but standard construction is Florida Building Code is what we'll be going by with this site.
Best management practices as far as an engineering standpoint.
Yeah, do we have best management practices for building on cost?
Well, let me be clear that they've identified the karst features on the property. What we're talking about is potentially sinkholes that aren't identified, that aren't on the surface, and they do have extensive areas that are being conserved around the karst features, and that does meet the county's codes, as well as any proposed stormwater will have to address the wetlands and identified karst features. So we're talking about an unknown here, but there are no specific standards for what if they find a pocket under the ground or something like that, unless there is groundwater issues. And in that case, then we'll address that. But we are not proposing any special construction design standards as far as the buildings go.
Can we hear from TCC?
Bob Ballard, Executive Director for the Wakulla Environmental Institute. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, you've heard the concerns. This is unscripted. This wasn't arranged. So this question comes up during this board meeting addressing this issue. Can we at least hear where TCC would be in its mind frame as far as undergoing construction such as we saw it?
We would like to exceed any... We're looking to protect the environment, and we're looking to show the world how to do that. Okay, so the last thing we want to do is damage our water or our karst features. The very last thing that we want to do. So we want to exceed any best management practices that even the county would give us, and we're going to do that in any event, no matter what the commission says. We're going to exceed what you give us.
Is that a sufficient answer?
And I think that's more than sufficient right now.
Okay.
Okay, any more discussion? All for the motion? Aye. Motion passes. Louis? I like how you made that motion.
Commissioner, this next item is a quasi-judicial matter. It's a rezoning. This is the first of 2 public hearings you're going to have on this, so you're not taking a vote on this tonight. You'll be taking a vote at your special board meeting on March 25th at 5 in the same room. However, because this is an ex parte matter, I need to get you all to disclose any contacts you may have received from interested parties, the lobbyist, the applicant, or any other third parties concerning the rezoning at the TCC property that you just considered for comp plan. Commissioner Thomas?
Not specifically rezoning, but I have spoken to Mr. Ballard just on the concept plan.
I have the same.
Not me.
I've spoken to Mr. Ballard on the concept plan, that's it.
I've spoken to Mr. Ballard, but not on this specific project.
I think something left out.
Okay. Again, it's quasi judicial matter, so if there's anyone here who is going to provide any information to the commission, please stand up to be sworn. Include the applicants, if you would, in case you get asked questions. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Turn it over to Louis.
Yes, Commissioners, as Heather indicated, this is the first of 2 public hearings. You will just be hearing, you'll just be opening the item this evening. We'll be introducing it. This is for the planned unit development, which is the rezoning portion of this. Through the planned unit development process, the applicant establishes their development standards for the site as well as their PUD concept plan. And these items are included in attachment 4 of the agenda item. And specifically on page 8 shows the concept plan for the facility. They've identified 4 primary elements in the plan, which is their conservation area, their conference center, their public practical training area, and the classroom administration portion of the PUD. And the plan unit development goes through and establishes the development standards for each. This is just the rezoning. It does not give them any development approvals at this time. They will have to follow up through with site plans based on the rezoning standards that they've presented tonight. Staff is available to answer any of your questions that you may have on the PUD as well as the applicant. The Planning Commission did recommend in favor of this.
Anybody have any?
I make a motion to conduct the first of 2 public hearings and consider adoption of the proposed ordinance amending the official zoning map, amending the official zoning from Ag zoning district to PUD zoning district based upon the findings of fact, conclusions of law made by the board, and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon.
I second it.
Come on, Chuck. Really? Joy? Brother?
I live at 54 Jean Drive. What my concern is the flooding of this, and I've been told that on the back that they have a sinkhole that swerves with water in it. Is it going to be like Jackson, Lake Jackson, is it going to suck it all down? You know, I worry about that. I have a sinkhole on my yard, in my yard. We filled it up, it's come back. It's pretty deep, you can't see the bottom of it. And another thing I'm worried about is the traffic. Are they going to make the roads bigger to bring all this traffic in? We have the middle school, we have the high school. What kind of traffic is this going to cause? Are they going to do the road and make it better that we won't have to fight traffic in the morning to get out? I mean, I worry about that. But, and then another thing, they said they're going to have to relocate animals that's on the property, like the turtle and all. I mean, I have deer that come and eat in my backyard, and we have turkey. You know, that's why we moved to Wakulla County. We don't want to look at 7-foot buildings in the back of us. You know, I don't want to look at it. Are they going to put, if they do this and they sell that piece of property, are they going to put a wall up so we don't have to look at it? I mean, you know, I don't want to look at it myself. I don't care. But that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'm going to take a brief break while Louis answers all those questions. If I'm not back.
Take your time, Louis.
All right. Well, just those are good points. There is 54 acres of the site is being preserved in conservation, and these are the areas around the wetlands. You know, it will ensure that these areas will be protected. The plan as well, again, does not allow any development. Those will be addressed through the site plan process. But the applicant in the PUD does specify when traffic concerns will be done, when additional traffic studies will be done based on the timing of their development. and at that time, they will look at any required improvements to Highway 319, which is the only access that's currently proposed with this plan. There are buffers around the entire site as well. And I think that, I don't know if there's anything that I've missed, but those are the basics.
I think we have to remember that this is the Wakulla Environmental Institute. This is not Walmart or any of that sort of thing. It's not Ford Motor Company building an assembly plant. This is an environmental institute, and they're going to be proposing and showing Wakulla County in its most pristine idea. So I do understand the lady's concerns. You don't want to be looking at big tall buildings, but I'm just very sure that they will do everything they can to make your yeah.
Putting it right in the neighborhood. I mean, what's going to happen when it pushes out is going to push the neighborhood.
Okay.
It's still right in the middle of the neighborhood.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. David? Or Keith, are you going to, Keith Blackmore here? CTST request?
Thanks, sir. Anyway, this agenda item requests board approval to fund the creation of a new safety zone on Wildwood Drive to serve the residents of the subdivision, students walking to school within the subdivision, heavy morning and afternoon traffic. And
I make a motion we approve.
Okay, thank you. Good man.
Second motion.
All right, we had a motion, second. More discussion?
Yes.
All right.
Do we have a map showing what this is?
Can I explain it as best
Try.
I can? All right. You know where you turn into the middle school off 98?
Yep.
Basically, it's the road that you turn off on all the way to the middle school. That doesn't have a speed zone on it, per se. You do on 98 coming to the intersection, but not on the actual road you drive down to get to the middle school. And that's what this addresses.
So this is $1,500 for signs?
Correct.
Right.
For school, the flashing school zone signs.
Oh, okay.
Okay, any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next agenda item requests board approval resolution appointing members to the Recreation Advisory Committee and select and appoint a citizen at large. I'll let Jessica Welch take this item from here.
Don't need to delve into it in detail. I think we've all read it.
She'll do it.
Good job, Bella.
Sorry, I had to pull it up here. This resolution will appoint new members to the Recreation Advisory Committee. The current members have all expired. Do you want me to list out their names?
I make a motion to approve. We all put our own people in, and we all voted for the member at large.
You each had 2 appointees. The school board has an appointee, and you also need to appoint your top-ranked citizen at large, which was Mr. Philip Voss.
Okay, so we got a motion. Is there a second?
Second motion.
All right, motion second. More discussion?
Can we ask the people to stand if they're in the room?
Sure. If there's anybody on this list to be appointed to the rec board, please stand. I know Pete's out there.
Your guy is there. Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good, thank you. The next item requests board approval of an amended resolution regarding the Affordable Housing Citizens Advisory Task Force. Louis?
Yes, Commissioner, this item is to change the membership of this committee to from 4 members and 1 alternate to just 4 members. It's primarily to address the issue that Ralph Thomas can no longer be a member since he was elected to office.
Ralph, you want to make the motion on it then?
If I can, I move to accept as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, Dr. Kessler?
Okay. Okay, so this is, there are 2 items that are listed. The first item is to, hopefully to request the board to approve a resolution in support of an event that is going to be held April 5th, 6th, and 7th, recognizing and helping the homeless victims in our region. And you may have seen a large article in the Tallahassee Democrat on that today.
You want to read it,
I'll
Howard?
read the resolution and make the motion.
Okay, sure.
All right? So, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Wakulla County, Florida, expressing whereas there are an estimated 107,000 homeless veterans living on the streets in the United States at any given night, and whereas providers, veterans, government agencies, and individuals from all walks of life have come together to organize the first North Florida Stand Down to address these needs of homeless and at-risk veterans in our region. And whereas the first Stand Down was organized in 1988 by Vietnam veterans in San Diego, who recognized that individuals who have bravely served our country should not be living on the streets. And whereas the North Florida Stand Down is a 3-day event which will house hundreds of homeless and at-risk veterans in our region, with the purpose of reducing veterans' homelessness in our region. And whereas the North Florida Stand Down will provide homeless and at-risk veterans with food, clothing, legal, medical, mental health assistance, job counseling, and most importantly, companionship and camaraderie. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Wakulla County is proud to recognize the North Florida Stand Down being held in Tallahassee, Florida, and appreciate the many volunteers in North Florida who are making this effort possible. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wakulla County Board of County Commissioners, in its regular session, duly assembled this 5th day of April 2013, 5th day of...
It's a little off on the date.
A little off on the date. So this is a draft, and the final is still on my computer, I guess. So that should be today, March 18th, 2013. Hereby recognizes North Florida Stand Down. Passed and duly adopted when it happens.
We won't mention the other day there.
Correct.
That one slide too, thank you. All right, excellent motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. More discussion? All for the motion? Aye.
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 Passes. Thank you, sir. All right, next item.
Okay.
Did you have that? Do you want to sign tonight, Howard, or you want to just correct? We'll have them correct the.
Yeah, I'll maybe
sign it tomorrow or something.
Yeah, because even if I ship it over there right now, it's not going to happen. So
Okay.
sign it tomorrow. Okay, this is the second item deals with the bus stop shelter signs that we have throughout our county. And what this item really is doing is requesting the board to vote to, if they so wish, to approve a pathway to eliminate the bus stop shelter signs that are on right-of-ways throughout the county, posing a hazard to motorists, and also they're not being used for the purposes that they were originally.
Is this a path, or you want to just do it?
I would like you to vote that way. The attorney then we'd have to identify sign by sign which are not in compliance.
Which ones are viable bus stops and which ones are...
Correct.
My only concern, do you want to go ahead and make, you want to word your motion how you want it?
So I'll leave it as a pathway.
Is there a second on the motion?
You could direct staff to begin the process of looking to see which ones are in compliance with state law and rules, and then we could bring back to you the
I wanted to
ones.
say something on it, but you want to wait till the
Let's wait,
motion?
let's get a motion. Is that, was her, what?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. My concern, I'm sorry, was people that have an existing contract for advertising on it, how are they going to try to get, they have to try to get a refund from whoever they got their contract from?
Well, this is going to take, it's not going to happen overnight, so we have to go through the process, and contacting the school board, contacting where their buses are actually stopping. Something will have to be drafted, so we're talking about, it's not going to happen at the next meeting, and it's not going to happen in a month.
Just for background, what if someone was to say, okay, I agree, people aren't using my bus stop, but I want to move it to here, to the intersection of this road, which is whatever down the road? Or do we just want to pursue getting rid of them altogether?
I'd like to see them off the right-of-ways. That's my personal view. I don't know what the board view on that is. And I think the input from the school board is critical on this.
Well, the thing that I wanted to say about it, I wanted to be sure that if we have a bus stop that is actively being used by children, that we leave that bus stop in place. I don't want us just to blanket remove all of them. There's an area where it's at the end of Trice Lane at the Eagles Ridge subdivision. There's one of those bus stops right there, and there's a lot of homes there, and I'm not sure how many children use that bus stops, but I want to be sure that we don't remove something that's being actively used.
That one's different, actually. Gene Cutchin's putting that up. It's on a county. I think it's actually in the subdivision of Eagles Ridge.
So that wouldn't be one of the other?
It wouldn't be just, the ones, Howard, or when we've been talking about, they're actually on the right-of-way, right, on the state right-of-way. To me, it's really a way to get a small billboard in the state right-of-way, kind of sneaky.
And that's what's happened, but when they were originally proposed, they did serve, I think, a dual purpose.
I don't know,
And
there's some that's pretty out there in the middle.
I was giving the benefit of the doubt.
One of the ideas that the advertising should offset the cost of it, but first it needs to be complying with the statute. You don't do it for the sake of advertising, you do it because it's being used and will serve the community. And
it's not being used unless the swamp fairies and the little calves are going to school.
Actually, that's my biggest concern about it. We just be sure that we leave it in place if it's being used, and also, like you were saying about the advertising, it's a 1-year contract for that advertising.
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
not just being used, but meets the letter of the law. I think we heard there's a requirement that can be no closer than 2 miles apart or something like that. So all of that criteria, I think we need to look at and make sure it's in compliance.
They have to be, part of that is they have to be being actively used.
Right.
Yes. And there's a specific definition of that. Okay, that's all for the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Katie, you got citizens here? All right, anybody want to guess? Chuck, come on.
Chuck, are you opposed to that 2 o'clock meeting because it interferes with your golf game?
Yes, it is.
Disclosure.
But the whole point is that if I was working, okay, I would still have to take a whole day off, okay, to attend that meeting. You know, either way you want it. And I wasn't coming up here to talk about that, but I'll be happy to talk about that a whole heck of a lot more. I mean, how do you decide what's controversial? You had something tonight I wanted to talk on, but I was on this consent agenda, so I didn't put a card in for it. I happened to sneak one in on the other one, but you know, it's nobody really. I've been surprised at the things that have been controversial. Okay, and I'm thinking that there's nothing going on in this meeting, and all of a sudden there's this huge controversy about something. So I'm not sure how you're going to do this to make things everything
step way out of
non-controversial.
character here, Chuck, and I think we all pretty much get along with each other. I think that if there's a controversial item, if somebody wants to make a motion to table it to the next meeting when there can be public input, I'm pretty sure we all go along with that.
Yeah.
I know I'm not supposed to speak to you, but go ahead.
Well, that's just one concern. But I was putting in this time for your final plats. Basically, I watched a final plat recently that was approved by the county, and it was a nice, well-designed development on 319, and they just added a new entranceway. And I understand from the planning department this was legal. And I'm going, y'all need to have something that when you approve a final plat, that project, that product that developer is putting out there is the development the community gets. Because I would have been much more aggressive about my opposition to that development with that added entranceway on 319. So you need to have something that really, restricts them to, a lot of the, that doesn't give them the freedom to do that. If they're going to make a change like that, they need to come back before you to make the change. Maybe you want to give them the right to make the change, but you need to have some input on that. And I think that's an important thing that, you direct staff to get something done on that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chris Russell? Chris Lee?
I take a merit break.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
You want your dad go first?
All
right, Bill, go ahead.
All of my problems tonight.
All right, great.
Hey, sorry about that. Talking to Bruce.
Chris Russell, 92 Pimlico. I don't know if you're aware of the Gulf Fisheries Fairness Act that Representative Bonner out of Alabama and Representative Sutherland out of Florida put together last week. It's a great act. I would highly recommend that y'all pass a resolution or send a letter supporting it. What it does is it gives more state control over reef fishery management. So, for example, it would go to what the proposal is, 120 feet deep or 9 nautical miles, whichever's further, would be under state control. That could have a major benefit here in Wakulla County and the counties beside us. So, highly recommend you research it and then send a letter of support on it, because we need that. I think we have 27 snapper days this year or something, and that's because of federal mandate. We need to have that a little closer home on that. A couple other things right quick. I applaud Commissioner Kessler for your poll you sent out about the board meeting times. What I might recommend is, I think last meeting y'all approved the school board going ahead with a special election. Maybe put it on there and get more input. I don't know if you can do that or not, but if we're paying to have a special election done, you know, maybe throw that out there and let the people look at it. I don't know if that's an option, but we just had an election in November. If we're going to have another one, might as well get everything we can out of spending the money to have that special election. Last thing on the boat ramps and parking issues, that thing needed work, obviously, before it got here. I know it's for the vessels, but it mentions vehicles. So that day, what's ironic, that day at AMS, I bought a new flounder gig Friday when this thing came out.
All 5 sit up for you too.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I didn't get to go that night, although the boat was ready. But if the issue's the vessels, let's stick on the vessels. You know, I may want to go there and keep my vehicle out with somebody else on their boat. Or I may want to go on a 2-day offshore and do that. I'd also say, look at how are you going to handle the people that go spend $5 that night or that afternoon. How's that going to come into play? So there's some things on that. If you look at that one, and then you look at the other one about the commercial vehicles, those were, in y'all's own words, they needed improvements ahead of time. Instead of submitting those on Friday or having it come out then, is there any way we could get a lengthier process out there? Maybe because of the citizens' input and the sheriff's input and the commissioner's input, maybe that will give you a little time to look at it before it comes out here and get people all riled up to have to come out to a meeting. So with that, thank you so much for the time to speak, and if anyone has any questions afterwards about the Gulf Fisheries Fairness Act, I'll be happy to talk to you about it, but it's something we really ought to get aboard.
I'd like to ask you to get with Ronald Fred and propose a resolution that we can
bring back.
I support that because
I was going to ask Jerry, since you're the coastal commissioner basically, right? Maybe you will get with Chris and share what resolution he's talking about.
I spoke at the FWC in East Point to allow the fishery to occur on those 3 months. In fact, I was the only commissioner or elected person in the whole Big Bend that was at that meeting. But if you will get with Ronald Fred and work out a resolution to make sure you get what you like, because that is a good policy to make it deeper. It gives us a little more room to work in.
I agree. Be happy to. And for those watching at home, I would highly recommend you contact your representative if you support it. And I don't know who wouldn't support that. It, you know, gives back more local control, state controls.
Good.
We kind of did.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Items, so
And let us know when you got an open spot on your boat, okay?
If it's not being towed away.
You need to move your boat. That's the reason we're here.
Ralph, did you have anything you wanted to speak on?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. First, we had the parade last Saturday, and I know it's not always convenient. Everyone can't make it, but it was a good crowd, good turnout. I'd like to just make a proposal that we try to participate in every parade. You know, I think it's a good place for us to unite, and that doesn't mean that any of us are going to be able to make every one, but I think the commitment is two parades a year, but I'd like to see us try to hit each and every one of them just to show the unity of this board.
It's always been, kids don't want to see politicians in parades. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about it.
If you got candy,
If you got candy, they want to see.
That's right.
Fire trucks, horses, you know, who wants to see a politician? But anyway, go ahead.
Next thing, I would like to just kind of bring this up. I spoke to the folks at the Historical Society, and we all know that they've been moving the buildings over to the new designated site, and they have just sung the praises of planning and zoning, and just your team is doing everything that you possibly can, and so we appreciate that, and we want to support you and be behind you on that. But I also wanted to bring past the board if there's a way for us to help accommodate them, because there's sometimes that our team is doing a great job, but they're just tied. Their hands are tied by the statute. If there's a way that we can put a temporary staging area to allow more buildings to come in and make sure it's blocked off by the public, it's not going to be a safety issue to the public, but also to accommodate the setup of these homes, so we're not taking a 100-year-old home and trying to bring it up to commercial standards. And so, I just, at this point, I guess what I'm looking for is a head nod from the board to direct staff to move forward to see if we can accommodate them and make this to be, really
anything we can do, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm a member on the Historical Society Board, and I appreciate you for bringing that up, and you got my full support.
Very good.
Howard, I certainly would be full support of that, too.
I wasn't paying attention.
Supporting the Historical Society.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Very good. The last thing that I have, and I didn't have time to get this on the agenda proper, so I just want to bring it up as a discussion item. As we know, I'm on the TDC, and our board at the last meeting approved the contracts for the grants that the advertising services that we're using the grant funds with. We have to move forward with that. I spoke to the county attorney, and at this point, her scope of work does not include representing the TDC, and I'll let her speak to that. But I'd just like to discuss that with the board, and we need to move forward with those contracts in the interest of time. But we also want to take her advice and input and figure out how we're going to move forward with her as an attorney or a third-party attorney.
What if the TDC director was a county employee, Heather? Could you then represent them, or is that totally different from representing the TDC board?
There's two issues. One, Commissioner Thomas addressed, and that is that it is not in our contract. But two is, we could certainly agree to add it to our contract, but there is historically and presently some conflict between this board and the TDC. And therefore, from an ethical standpoint, as an attorney, that puts me in an awkward position if I'm sitting on both sides of that.
Is it analogous then to like the Panacea area water system? That's not a county department. They're their own board. They have their own attorney, right?
Or probably even better, our value adjustment board. That is a function of the county, but they have their own attorney for that board. And that's an example I brought up.
Yeah, and many TDC boards do have their own attorney. There is nothing legally that would prevent, if you had a TDC board and a county in lockstep and there's very little or no controversy going forward, there's nothing to prevent the county attorney from representing both. But it's a judgment call for us when we get to a situation where there's potential adversarial issues, and at that point we would have to then step back and not be able to represent either party.
Yeah, I would like to see us, first of all, you possibly having that conflict, I would like to see us do a local attorney. We have qualified local attorneys here that probably need work.
I think that's a great idea.
And I would like to make one change, and I'd like to make a change. We have a 10% advantage for local contractors. You would probably have to put out an RFP for that proposal for an attorney, would you not?
Under the county's purchasing policy, they have done RFPs for attorneys, but there's also, it's an exclusion for legal services. It's
Okay,
typically
well, then
not
I'd like to
required
see
do
a local attorney have a good shot at that job if
You want to
possible.
bring that up to the TDC board, Ralph? I think we all agree. Well, they probably need their own representation.
I certainly will, but I have communicated that already, and they understand that. I think the main thing is the interest of time, just moving this thing forward. I don't know if that can be done quickly, if the TDC board can just go out and hire an attorney, or maybe even just hire an attorney just for this contract issue and then look at a full-time attorney later on.
They fall under our purchasing policy. I'm sorry. There's a certain amount of money they can spend without
Well, I mean, legal services are an exemption from your purchasing policy, so they could find somebody they like and negotiate a good rate and hire somebody without going through a procurement.
Is this just to review the contract?
Yes.
So nothing controversial. I'm sure Heather will be happy to do that.
And another issue that was brought up, we have received 400,000 of the money, the 500,000 that we're going to be getting. And I guess if something arises and a suit comes out of it, the county is going to be the one that is sued. And so that was a point that the TDC board made.
Heather wouldn't be one to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what's the answer? Is there an answer? And I don't know if they can get somebody on board fast enough. Sure they could. I guess it's the question. Well, get somebody to volunteer to do it.
And I don't know time frame if that can be done.
I don't know their time frame. I mean, they don't have to put out a formal RFP. They could hire legal without doing that. And then obviously once a contract was presented, we would review it on behalf of the county to make sure that the county's interests are protected.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking for guidance from the board because the main thing is we don't want to fumble this money.
Well, I would say basically my idea is let's get an attorney on board who can handle that problem.
Well,
they get an attorney.
They get an attorney on board, comes out of their
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
their funds,
Their budget.
So would it help you going back to the TDC to have us vote on this if we can get a unanimous vote?
I think so, so if I'm understanding right, I think our next meeting is on the 28th. If that's voted forward, we can present it, the TDC can vote and accept it, and they can move forward immediately with hiring someone to review the contract.
So basically the motion would be that they get their own legal representation.
I second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second?
And that it comes out of their funds as well.
It'll come out of
It's
their
clear.
funds.
Okay, so it's motion and second.
And since this was not an agenda item, we have to have a 5-0 vote.
You got a 5.
Your motion does include what Howard says about this company.
And I don't want to block it. If I block it, then that's going to come back to another board meeting.
So let's actually vote if we could.
Their attorney out of their budget. Just for clarification, that's your motion. Okay, motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Ralph?
That's it from me.
All right, Mr. Jerry?
Okay, Mr. McLaughlin, you're the historical person. There is a home on 319 very close to AMS that is listed for sale. It's an old.
Tully house?
Nobody's living in it. Now, I don't know. I'm new to town.
Is it the Tully house, right? Big 2-story house right across from the old Pygott?
Well, I don't know, but I looked through the woods, and it's if Miss Green misses that home, she's going to have a heart attack.
I think even Betty'd be fine if they push that one down.
I don't know. It's
The Valley House is beyond.
Yeah, it's beyond.
okay. Well, that may be the one. Tim, do you have that listing?
No, but it's beyond the.
Okay. Well, I'll accept that on that.
Donnie Spartman's wife's, that's where she grew up at.
Okay. I just happened to be talking with Sheriff Creel earlier tonight, and he mentioned that he would be willing to undergo conversation to help us with some of our repairs on our equipment, our buses and our ambulances. His problem, he was telling me how this gentleman back here had saved so much money already.
Pete Cochran.
Okay, he told me how great Pete was and how much money Pete had saved because of his work on the equipment. His only problem is that their lift will only go at 9,000. They need a lift at 15,000. I think it would be good conversation for us to discuss and provide them with a lift or to enter into some sort of negotiations where that they can work on our equipment and save us bunches of money.
I think it's not only the lift, Jerry, also, but the ceiling height, if I'm not wrong.
Well, he said a lift.
Well, you gotta have at least 14-foot ceiling to put a big lift in.
Well, that may, I don't...
Yeah, I thought the Charlie was the same.
Okay, very good. One other item is that I'm a connoisseur of good food, and I had some wonderful chowder at that place on 319. So if you happen to be going by 319 and you're hungry, there's some really good chowder at 319. So that's...
I had it also, it is good.
And Randy had it?
Yes. Me too. I think I agreed to pay for it even. All right, on mine, very briefly, we've talked about impact fees many times. I think not all of us, but most agree that we don't want to bring them back. Most mostly agree that a fair impact fee would be okay, but not until the housing recovers somewhat. And I sat down with Tracy Chance over the building department and pulled back, how many building permits were per month going back to like 2000. And it looks like the average during a normal year, pre-boom year, is maybe 20 building permits a month for single-family dwellings. During the boom, it was like 80-something a month. Today, it's like 7. So if we had a number that we said automatically when we reach 15 is the number we thought about, 15 building permits a month for 3 consecutive months in a row, we'll reinstate some sort of impact fee.
I don't think it gets us there. I think that's, I don't think that's to the point of return. It should be more than that.
Whatever it is, we can say
Yeah,
it's 20.
well, I've been against this all along, but if we can, and then I'm going to be very severe on where that money goes.
Well, and also what dollar amount the impact fee is. That makes a huge difference.
That's true too, but also I don't want that money spread out to 16 different directions. That's my opinion. But we've got to, let's say you were doing 100 building permits in the boom years. Well, we're not going to go back to the boom years.
No.
We're going to go back maybe 65% of that. So if we get back to
20 seemed to be a good average back from 2000, 2001, which was pre-boom years.
Yeah, but that's not going to help us get kicked off at this particular time. If we get back to...
Maybe 5 years from now before we get back to 20 building permits a month.
Yeah, but that's something we can work on, and I'm not totally against it, but I just want to make sure that we get up to snuff before we start.
I agree, and that's why I wanted to kind of index it to a number. It's not just arbitrary and say, I feel like we're doing good now. Once we have X number of building permits a month, we know people are building houses again. And the impact fee I'm not talking about is not $10,000. I'm more along the line of maybe $600 split out. And I talked to David about this. We really need to look at what impact fees to charge and what not to charge. Like corrections, for example. You can charge your corrections impact fee. What are you going to spend it on? You've got to spend it on new capacity. And our jail right now already has way too much capacity. So what do you do with the money? Some of it's actually hard to spend. For law enforcement, you have to provide new service, not just maintain the service you have, but new service. But anyway, just something to talk about.
Well, we're going to be expanding our infrastructure, so would that impact fee on homes be able to be put towards infrastructure?
It depends.
I'm not going to go along with that.
I didn't even finish my sentence over here.
You can't pave a dirt road with it, for example.
I got you.
Heather said it can only be for arterial and collector roads, right?
Yeah, collector road you're paving.
If you had a collector road, you're paving, but we...
Right, and could it be used for partnership in improving 319? Yes.
Yeah, that's
right. So if we look at this, and I think it's a creative idea about a trigger point, but we really should be out in front of this thing rather behind it. And if you're looking at what $600 is an impact fee of stopping anyone from building a home, I don't think it's going to do that. If you look at $1,000 as an impact fee is stopping anyone from building a home, I don't think it's going to do that.
$10,000 on the other hand.
Well, $20,000 also.
Pause. Yeah.
Sure, of course. So there is a certain amount of revenue that could be coming in that would allow us to have these funds earmarked as they have to be earmarked to be able to partner and improve our county.
Here's another little wrinkle, though. How many years you have to spend them before you have to give them back? 7 years. So
7 to 10.
I understand your point, but it may not. 7 years from now, we may not be able to partner with DOT within 7 years.
Correct. We could on the collector and arterial roads, we can. It doesn't have to be a DOT project.
Exactly.
You have to just encumber them.
Okay. My position the whole time has always been I'm not necessarily against impact fees if I feel they're fair. Now, that's the big thing with me is that they're fair because and they're not disagree on this, but when a home is constructed, that family immediately starts paying gas tax. They start paying sales tax money that's used for can be used for new construction, they're paying ad valorem. I know we can't count ad valorem taxes necessarily in the equation, but they are paying gas taxes, which we use for paving roads, and they are paying 1 cent sales tax. And the way the impact fee was done, you have to extrapolate that out for 33 years, because you're extrapolating out their expense to the county for 33 years and then bringing that back to a present day number. But you also have to calculate that what they're contributing to the county over that 33 years and bring that back as a credit. So it's not really simple.
You know, Randy, talking about the, let's say, $600 impact fee, the builders build according to the needs of the buyer. And if the builder puts a very good insulation package in this house, and this builder doesn't put that insulation package in, 90% of the time the buyer's going to buy that one without the good insulation package, simply because of the cost. So you throw an insulation package may be $600, so that can be the break point. Of course, you're saying every house would have the $600.
Everybody would pay this. And don't forget now, on the positive side, we did change the septic tank rules, which I have a lot of buddies that are contractors that made a huge deal to them, huge cost savings for not having to do a performance-based tank in all places. So anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it right now, but
where are we with commercial impact fees? Do we have them?
No, we don't have any impact fees.
So every time one of these larger projects goes in, we are not having an impact fee. So whatever that restaurant is, Zaxby's, we're going to lose the impact fee there.
Well, let's take that out one more step further. Does Zaxby's charge sales tax?
Yes.
Okay. We're losing out the impact fee, yes, but we are getting more in sales tax revenue from that new business. So it's not like they're coming in and taking away from the people that
you're
live
creating 40 jobs, 40 more incomes.
We're going to buy homes and pay ad valorem tax.
You bet.
This is obviously too big a discussion.
No, and it's this is the time of the meeting where it's to be discussed. So there's a difference in philosophy. There are many people on this board that feel that growth does not pay for itself. Or
not many people.
There are few that think that way. There are many that think that growth doesn't pay for itself. Okay? And
let's vote on that.
Yeah, well, understood that's a difference in philosophy. I went out there, looked at the literature. Other people went out there, looked at the literature, came out with two different conclusions. But there's nothing wrong. Zaxby's is not going to not locate here because we have an impact fee. Publix is not going to not locate here because we have an impact fee. But if they do and we don't have an impact fee, we lose all of that revenue. And that's the point that I'm trying to make.
I agree with you within reason. And if it's a huge impact fee, of course they're not going to do it.
If we do, I'm going to be very, very straight on this, and I've talked to several people. If we ever do impact fees or anything, my position is that it goes to the kids. It goes to recreation for the kids, to parks, to building, to whatever. And I'm not, that's the only way I'm going to vote. If it goes to the kids, I'll vote for it. And if it doesn't go to the kids, I won't.
And I would prefer it to see done on mathematics, not on...
We can work on this. We can try to lower the driving age in Wakulla County to 12. That'll let us improve the roads for the kids to drive on. But being serious, we need to think about how we're going to provide as much revenue for the infrastructure that we need and not have it all come on the backs of our taxpayers.
I agree.
Well, I just want to weigh in on this and just say I'm not in favor of impact fees. I haven't been in favor of impact fees, and it's going to take a whole lot for someone to get me in favor of impact fees, because I want to piggyback off what Jerry said, that if you have a business come in and you don't have impact fees, you'll make more off the sales tax and the property tax and other things that business is going to bring than you ever will the impact fees.
I don't want to be known as the guy, the tax guy here sitting on the board now. So
I just want to...
We got elected.
elections
I am not in favor of impact fees, and I just...
Well, I'd like to echo that, and I will
not either.
I will say to Randy that I'm all about the math, and if we can make the math work, I can change my mind, but I've sliced this thing 9 ways to Sunday, and I can't make the math work. It's an unfair tax every way I look at it, and I'll give you a good example. You even talked about commercial. Do we remember the last person, to the best of my knowledge, that paid a commercial impact fee in the amount of about $25,000 to a business who had already been here for years? She'd lived here for decades, raised her kids at daycare.
She should have had a refund.
Miss Lucy, I mean, how can we say she's created jobs, she's creating an opportunity where her kids or their parents' kids can be watched here and not have to drag them to Tallahassee or somewhere else? I don't see how we can tell her that she made a negative impact to our community when she's lived here her entire life, owned property, paid property taxes. I can't make the math work to support it.
Well, I certainly, on commercial now, I really didn't delve into commercial very much, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying about that. I was only talking about residential.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I understand.
and
Just one last thing, FAC, Florida Association of Counties, why don't you tap them as a resource on that impact fee thing?
I will do that, but we do know that they're about government expansion and finding creative ways to generate revenue and taxes, and so, you know, that's what keeps them in business.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Citizens to be heard, actually 2 things at our 2 o'clock meeting. Number 1, I agree with Ralph 100%. Maybe let's look 3 months from now, let's look back. If it's causing, especially Richard, if it's causing you a problem at work, I said that from the get-go, let's change it back. If it's causing you a problem,
Well, I mean, as is right now, we're not able to make it, but the reason and I'll be able to make it whatever time we will, but the reason I offered myself is there's a lot of people out there that work 8 to 5 just like I do. You know, and I'm having to take leave to come to meetings, so I'm concerned with the average citizen having to take leave from their job to be here. And I'm blessed to be able to have a job, but if I'm not here, I'm still getting paid. But a lot of people, they don't have jobs like that. If they're not at work, they don't get paid, so they actually incur a financial hardship by not being able to.
Well, let's just see what happens. Like Ralph said, we may discover a whole new group of citizens out there that haven't been able to participate before. We may not. We may save staff time. We may not. And I'm not stubborn enough not to change my mind. So let's just see what happens.
So we can expect a lot more Thomases and Merritts at the next meetings in the afternoon.
And people with children in school and senior citizens that don't want to drive at night. I talked to Mr. Hollis Hopkins about the same thing. He said he wouldn't go to a meeting at night because
we're almost finished and it's still light, but I understand.
It is summertime.
Yeah, I understand. But on that citizens to be heard, so our issue now is.
Yeah, what time do we need? Do we want all the citizens to be heard at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of the meeting? I want to talk to y'all about it. I mean, I guess it's kind of up to me. It doesn't really matter.
If we're going to have a meeting at 2 o'clock, I think we need to have the citizens to be heard at the end of it, at least to give as many people as possible.
Now, here's the not negative side to that.
Yeah.
You're right. We'll say the meeting lasts 3 hours, though. And it's probably going to be done before people are going to get home from work anyway. I would think I don't think this is the right. But anyway, one point is if you go ahead and set it at 2 at the beginning of the meeting, they know what time they can speak and not have to wait 3 hours till the end of the meeting.
How about during this trial period, let's do one at the beginning and one at the end, and let's see how that works.
Have 2 of them?
2 of them.
So we're going to limit the trial to 2 now?
No.
Well,
he's saying 2.
That's just what I had spoken to people, and I had committed that I was going to bring it back after 2.
Okay.
And so...
You have citizens to be heard at the first of one meeting and at the last of the other meeting.
I mean, do it at the beginning. Do it at 2 o'clock, and then do it the last thing after discussion.
I mean, it said 2 citizens
works for the citizens, and that's...
Same meeting?
2 of them.
Same meeting.
Same meeting. 2 o'clock, and then when the meeting's over.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And
that's a good idea.
All right, write it down, Jessica. Well, that's the way we'll do it.
And I'll say one thing I'm kind of encouraged tonight. Usually about this time of night, or even a little earlier, the crowd has dwindled to nothing. And so you guys started out at 37, we're down to 26. We've hung in there pretty good tonight, but we'll see. We'll see if that works out. You know.
That's a good point. It was made from the audience via sign language. Can one person speak at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting? Or,
I mean, I wouldn't. Seems like that's kind of abusing the system.
It's just trial period.
I'd say one time.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a
Chuck's going to want to speak all night.
So are we saying then that we're going to try it in the next 2 months when we have the afternoon meeting to allow citizens to be heard at both the beginning and the end of the meeting?
I wanted 3. Do you want to just do 2? I'm not going to die over it.
I mean, 3 may be better, that way they don't have to rush it right at 2. I mean...
No. 3 meetings in a row where we try it, and then David comes back and says, this is working good.
The only problem is if I agree to that, I'm a liar to some folks that I said I'd bring it back at 2.
2 meetings it is then. 2 meetings. All right, David?
Yeah.
And Jessica, you've got the thanks citizens to be heard at the beginning of the meeting and at the very end of the meeting.
And the citizen will only be allowed to speak at one of those times. Is that what I heard?
No, let's just do both. I mean, if it's a problem, we'll fix it.
And this-
He's an expert in this.
This is just for the 2 o'clock meetings?
Yeah, correct. Just the 2 o'clock meeting. All right, let's see. I just want to keep it in y'all's mind fresh over there about my footbridge on Mashy Sands. I still remember that.
I agree with that. I support that.
It's getting summertime. It'd be great to get and go fishing. I could have it built in about 2 weeks.
Can you get out?
Turn your heads the other way.
Can you get out to the end of the island?
No, not without a boat to get across where the canals go.
So you go most of the way out.
No, you can go about from here to that road out there, and then the road's cut in half. Used to you could drive.
Oh, no, I know, after you do your footbridge, though.
Yes.
Once you do your footbridge,
everywhere.
you can go all the way to the east.
Yep.
That's a beautiful sand beach.
And that is one of the reasons I'm in contact with, what's her name, to get that taken care of.
How would you know what I'm talking about there? That right across from the boat ramp on Mashy Sands, that road that used to go out?
Dennis took it out.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with it.
It was going to be a, what do we call it, Ocotney Bay Phase 2. They dug the canals and everything, and they just never built the houses out there.
Got to get Corps approval for that, so we'll take care of that.
I talked to David about this too. I thought Chuck's idea about spending the TDC dollars at the community center would really spark my interest. If it's legal to do that, and there's money there to do it, that may be a way to help fund the operations of that without using ad valorem tax dollars. Anyway, and I asked David's going to look into it. And I talked to Louis also. They're still working on the traffic study thing about if a group uses a preferred vendor of the counties, they don't have to have the county come back and review their own traffic study again.
Yeah.
And he is still working on it.
Yeah, that's
important. All right, that's it. Richard?
Well, earlier in the meeting, whenever we were talking about, where to park vehicles, it got brought up, and it was brought up earlier today as well, that you could only, I didn't know that you could only have one commercial vehicle parked in your yard.
Per dwelling.
Per dwelling. There's a lot of people who they use their yard to house their commercial equipment, and they may have more than one vehicle, and I think that's pretty restrictive, just to restrict them just to one. And I was going to ask, if would the board be willing to maybe increase that, even if just to 2?
I think the new ordinance actually, does it supersede the one you're talking about not allowing but
That
one?
one's not coming forward though, correct? You said-
If we adopt the new one, would it supersede that one, and that only says 1, in other words?
If you adopt the new one, the restriction on 1 we carried forward, but it would only apply in those small residential zoning
2 acres or
districts.
less,
Yep.
basically.
So it would have allowed the example that was given by Commissioner Harden
With
to
the
become
fire.
legal.
That was kind of a two-edged thing, so that was mixed in with the other.
And just for y'all to think about that, it's a good point that, just think about it, maybe if you could say if you're on a tenth of an acre or less, you can't have a dump truck in your yard.
I agree with you.
There may be some point where, it is logical, or if you live in a townhouse, you can't park a dump truck in your yard. Just think about it, some more. I'm glad we continued it, but there may be a point where it does make sense. I agree it doesn't make sense if somebody trying to make a living and lives on an acre and they want to park their dump truck.
Yeah,
It's dead.
You didn't get a vote, so we're not bringing it, staff's not bringing it back.
That's right,
If you guys
it
want to
is.
bring it back in some form or another, it will need to
That's what
come back from the board.
Anything else, Richard?
There's one other thing I want to talk about. I was looking the other day, and on on our website, there's not really any spelled out way. So say if a business somewhere else were wanting to locate in the Wakulla County, and they were looking to see, okay, why should I locate my business in Wakulla County? In a lot of other counties, like Holmes County and several other counties, if you click on the county commission website, there's a whole page on just one reason after another that county selling itself or why a business should locate there and do business with that county. And I just, for curiosity, I looked on our website and looked, and it just gives the names of who's on the Economic Development Council, and that's it. It doesn't give any. I didn't know if I was going to talk with you sometime about that to maybe update that.
Just to let you know, the chamber. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
The chamber is actually also engaging in a new update of the EDC. We thought you guys as well.
And I thought we were partners with the EDC in Tallahassee when we were. Maybe we don't have the proper link in there.
We will shortly. We're getting ready to convert, so.
The thing that made me look at this, you know, if y'all ever looked at that 850 magazine that comes out, and you see counties all around us and cities doing, these businesses are located in, I was just looking, but the one common denominator is everywhere these businesses are locating, that county's got a system that they're really selling themselves, and I'm looking at some of the things that they're doing, and one good thing, we had that ordinance that passed the past election that'll give us more tools in our toolkit in order to offer a better package. And so if we can have some way, you know, to work, I would be glad to work with you on that to create something. So if another business is wanting to look to locate here, we'll be able to have a good package to offer.
Before we get to Howard, one more thing on community center. Try to get us a good car show down there too, by the way. Everybody loves hot rods. Howard?
Everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, I'm going to start off with, we had voted as a board for a priorities workshop, and it never happened. But it was scheduled, but it never happened. Okay, so how is this going to get scheduled again? That's the question.
You're right, we did agree to it. And how do we need to schedule it? Need to bring it back as an agenda item?
Good date.
I'd prefer to hold it before a meeting. Is this something you think would be a lot of citizen input on, Howard? Do we need an afternoon meeting? Or is this really for us to discuss amongst us?
It's really us.
Okay, well then.
I mean, you invite the citizens there, but I mean, it's our meeting.
I'd like to see it before maybe the next budget meeting. As we start making these priorities, you know, that may impact how we move forward with budget meetings.
How about 1 o'clock on the day before, on the day of our 2 o'clock meeting?
When is our next 2 o'clock meeting?
Second April meeting?
The second April meeting, which is the 15th of April.
Or we could do it before the first meeting then. That's fine with me too. Have it at 4.
I know what I'll be doing.
3:30 again? 3:30?
What's that? On April 1st?
Next meeting, or April 1st?
April Fool's Day?
Fool's Day, perfect.
Well, if we're going to have the only problem with that is I think 3:30 is probably going to be crunching you on time. Because normally these are fairly lengthy meetings. I would say 1 o'clock at the latest.
We should probably change our meeting from April Fool's Day.
You're all right.
What's a better fitting thing to have a board meeting?
I would make it at least 1 o'clock, because like I say, there could be a very, it could be short, but I'd more than likely it's going to be lengthy.
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock when?
April 1st.
Fool's Day.
Okay, that's good with us.
All right, is that good with y'all?
I'll make it good.
Okay.
Whatever happens, happens.
Are you good with that, Jessica?
Yeah, we have time to advertise it.
Have time to advertise? Okay, all right. Just want to check to make sure we're good on advertising.
Okay. So this item that I had on there on the TDC director resignation and payment, we've all seen to the west of us some things that have happened with the TDC. And the issue seems to be oversight, and that really concerns me, and I know it concerns you as well. So some people are being hung out there because of lack of oversight. And so I don't know where we stand with this. I know we're going to get a separate attorney for the TDC now, that's good. But where do we stand on how we pay the TDC when someone, I don't understand the contract. I tried understanding it, reading it through. This is a subcontractor. Sick leave? And I'm just asking. Because these questions are asked me.
No.
The best analogy I could find for it would be like Cleve. Well, I guess
No, that's not even good. That's
not even that. Well,
She's a billable hour. She gets none of the benefits like sick leave, vacation, or any of that stuff.
he doesn't get county benefits. There's
That's
company
right.
pays for it. No, there's no county insurance, no county sick days, no county vacation days.
Right.
It's you get paid for the hours you work.
And the TDC board, or whatever they're called, they're responsible for running their ship. What is our responsibility in relation to how they're doing?
Their budget is my understanding.
Is that it?
Not the extent of it.
Well,
No.
statute,
Their plan, well, their plan.
You got
have
other
oversight.
laws.
According to the statute, we have oversight. We're required to make sure that they comply with the statute.
Well, let me restate
And
that.
actually, as the statute speaks, they're actually a recommending agency to this board.
Right.
We don't have any authority over the TDC director, though, correct?
Not under the current, that'd be a contractual question. I don't have a
Maybe
copy
that's
of
what
it
I
with
was-
me, but.
Yeah, and what I came away from after reading the statute, and the reason I just start off with that one question is that it's all very unclear to me, but what seems to be clear to me is that the buck stops with us, and we have to have a certain amount of real accountability for us in dealing with the TDC. I mean, it's not like we've approved your budget, we've approved your plan, do your thing. It doesn't seem to work that way. If anything goes awry, we're the entity that's held accountable, just like those other fellows are.
My suggestion along those lines would be the next TDC director be a county employee. Now, I guess the TDC is kind of like, would the Regional Planning Council be a better example?
No, I mean, the TDC is a statutory board. This board had to create them. They are basically seen as your subject matter experts and directing or providing recommendations to this board on how to best spend your tourist development tax dollars. In many counties where they're much larger, they have much larger budgets. They have their own in-house director. They have their own attorney who is usually an outside firm, but they operate with a great deal of autonomy. But their county commission is still the ultimate entity responsible. Here, you have a situation set up where they're your subject matter experts. They've been given a lot of discretion in the past, but with they have a contract director. That contract, however, is with this board in recognition that the tax dollars and the budgeting authority is ultimately this board's. So there are a lot of ways you could set this up. You could have a TDC employee. You could have a county employee was brought on, and part of their duties was to staff the TDC. You could have, decide you want to spend those TDC dollars on marketing and hire a marketing entity and get into only a contract management situation where your marketing agency is doing it and you're just managing a contract. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. The statute doesn't speak to just one. You have the discretion.
Do we do an accounting annually on the TDC?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one oversight that we have. Now, who does that accounting for us?
Clerk's office, and we have an independent audit.
So the TDC does have an independent audit every year.
Use our auditor audits here.
So that is one portion of accountability.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's after the fact.
Well, isn't it all after
Yeah,
the?
that's
Doesn't
right.
it all hit the fan after the fact?
You're right, but yeah.
And well, along those lines, we've always just pretty much, TDC says, well, we want to spend all our money on this, and we just kind of went along with it, not really put a lot of input on it, and maybe there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the way it's always been.
Ultimately, how you spend that money is this board's decision. They put forth a plan. If they change the plan, you all have to approve that by ordinance.
My thought is we need to come up with a structure that we're comfortable with as the board because we're ultimately responsible. I don't like to micromanage anything, so I think that we need to come up with that plan, and then we need to have the right people in those seats executing that plan, and that comes with accountability and checking to make sure that they're doing that. But I don't think we need to be in a situation where we have to approve every little detail that comes forward, every little advertising. Now, should some things be fixed? Yes. The first question is, how we move forward, whether it's going to be the contract or whether it's going to be a county employee. Once we resolve that, obviously, how much are we going to pay that person, and the proposal that I'm going to be bringing forward at the next meeting, I've tried to take a stab at that and make it a percentage of what we expect or anticipated revenues. And then within that, my idea is we could go forward and say, okay, if we approve that, if we approve the county employee, then you have a budget that's based on this percentage that you can put toward revenue. Now, the hands-off part is maybe we don't need to micromanage and say you can't hire an assistant or you can. We just need to have that framework. So this is your budget. Now do the best you can within that budget. One problem that I see looking at it right now that I think we don't have oversight where we should is this board approves a budget which includes contracted services. Well, you can look at that, look at one particular grant and it'll have, for example, $16,000 in contracted services. And I don't know that any of us, or probably even the county staff, and even the clerk's office, they can't tell you, well, when that was approved, X amount of dollars is going to go to this person or this independent contractor. There's just a pot of money, and when those invoices get sent, they're paid until the money runs out. I think that's one place where we need to know what those contracted services are so we can figure out if it fits in that framework of, how much we want to pay a director, assistant, contracted services total.
I think you need to, I think basically TDC needs to say that it's sort of like I can't think of the word, but they need to say that so much percentage of these dollars will go to marketing, let's say, a certain percentage. I saw one readout that on one particular deal, the consulting services wound up with all the money, or a great portion of the money. It doesn't do any good if you get $100 and you spend a large portion of that on consulting. If you don't have something that gets on the road. So I would think that somehow that TDC, I'm not going to tell them how to run their business, but they need to show us that a certain percentage of that money is going to always be out there, and maybe a certain percentage can go to salaries. If you say, let's just say 10% of it can go to salaries and no more. So is the person going to be doing grants? So is she going to be, he or she, I think Pam was probably an excellent grant person. We got $500,000 here because of her working late one night, for whatever. But I would like to see that a certain percentage of that money is put on the ground, and we don't want to eat up the money in salaries and consultants. Consultants and salaries is government.
And that's been my approach, and that's what I'm trying to put together. And I don't know that it's the best number, but it's a conversation starter, and we can decide what we think that structure should be.
My personal preference would be that this will be a county department, basically, be a county employee. David has day-to-day oversight. TDC would direct general direction that they want to go, but I believe like Cherie's position could be paid for with it, make it a fixed salary, but the administrative portion of the grants they get could probably end up paying their own salary. Then we could use the bed tax money to do things like possibly help run the community center, help improve boat ramps, help, build nice facilities that will draw people to the county from Florida or whatever to go fishing. And look at Chuck Shields' place on the weekend. He's got a very nice place. It gets very crowded, and I'm sure he makes a lot of money.
Well, this is what I had hoped for in bringing up this thing, and I think that the discussion points us in the right direction, and I really want to thank Commissioner Thomas for being on that TDC board as our representative. gives a good level of comfort. Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, I would also like to say, well, we already know that Pam has turned in a resignation, but at our last TDC meeting last week, we learned that this $500,000 BP grant, there's another one. There's a second round of that, and our board did vote to approve to have her move forward, and even though she's still recovering from her surgery, she is moving forward with that, and it's a short fuse. I think it's got to be in by the 28th or 29th, but she is working on that, trying to get that second $500,000 for us.
I think when Pam does resign, we need to, as a board, recognize her for the work.
I was just
she's done.
fixing to say that.
Definitely, I think.
She's brought millions into this county in grants that we will have benefit long after, even if she's resigned.
You know, she's the, you know, as we know, she's the best grant person we've ever had. So having said that,
Other than
is it possible to keep her on, for TDC, to keep her on retainer for just grants?
She's moving on with a career.
I think she's moving on with her career at this point in time.
But I do feel that she needs to be fully recognized for her efforts and what she's done for our county.
All right, can we get a motion to adjourn?
No. Whoa. There, boss man. We got two things. One is a reminder, next Monday, we're having a special board meeting, 5 p.m., that's March 25th. That's for
TCC.
TCC, change of zoning and PUD development plan. Secondly, we're going to have this board priority workshop. What do you guys want us to present? Do you guys want to bring your list of priorities and talk amongst yourselves and us comment on that?
I thought maybe we could look, have you looked at the infrastructure plan, Howard, that 11 by 17 document?
Well, we have that sent out for the 12th time.
Yeah.
And I think we also should compile whatever list we think.
I just want to know so we understand, because we got a lot going on right now.
What do you want them to bring, I guess is what they're saying.
That list is fine. There's, you know, the projects that are in that 5-year plan, you're saying. And
Okay.
Comp plan, you know, infrastructure element of the comp plan. Maybe.
Well, they mirror each other, so yeah. Yeah, our legislative priorities. Okay, we'll bring that. I just wanted to make sure. And that's all we'll bring. We'll bring those and we'll talk about it.
Are you going to send it out ahead of time, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we'll get it out.
Okay, I think we got a motion, we're done. All for aye.
Chris.
Yeah, we did.